Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 Minute Marvel. I'm your host, Petter, and I am joined again by,
It's Greg. How you guys doing?
we have a whole lot of Marvel news to talk about. I had a topic all ready to go, and then Marvel made this a really busy week in terms of trailers and everything. But before we get to all of that, I just want to thank you all for listening. I hope that you're enjoying this podcast. If you are, please consider subscribing, sharing it with your friends, or leaving a rating and review. You can find the podcast over on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. All right, Greg, you ready for a lot of news?
Yes. And it's like D23 all over again.
Yeah, I would say there's more news coming out of this than D23, unless you were there, which neither of us were because of all the exclusive clips.
Yeah. I was there in spirit.
I was there vicariously through Twitter. We're going to start out with, three pieces of news that are more related to the casting side of things. The first being that Emilia Clarke's character for Secret Invasion might have been spoiled, and she is potentially playing Abigail Brand.
Okay, I'll be honest. I had to look her up beforehand, before we started this, and I got a quick little, overview of her. So I don't have a lot of backstory. So I do not have a lot to add on this. So I'm going to let you teach me everything. So go, tell me everything.
Well, I'm going to be able to add in a little bit for this. She isn't necessarily a big player in the comics through a lot of things, but she is in Secret Invasion in that she is one of the people on Sword, the kind of space monitoring branch of S.H.I.E.L.D., but not S.H.I.E.L.D. sort of thing, which we were introduced to in WandaVision. And so in the events in the comic books, of Secret Invasion, the Skrull blow up this space base, and she is basically scrambling to get everybody she can rescued from there. That's kind of my knowledge of her, besides that she's half human, half alien. It doesn't look like from the trailers that we've seen and from like the images that we saw, like set images of Emilia Clarke. I'm a little bit surprised it's Abigail Brand, but I mean, this is also the MCU versus the comics, so they could definitely take that character in a different direction, or they could potentially cram a couple of characters together. And since Abigail Brand is important-ish, have her also be an additional character, play an additional role from that storyline.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Who did they do that with? Like that sounds familiar. And I can't remember which character right now, top of my head. They kind of
Um,
mixed the two.
I'm trying to think. I feel like they've definitely done it before as well. I can't remember whom.
To me, like, when I saw that it was for Sword, like that's who she was, who she's, kind of works for. It made me think of Agents of Shield. I was like, is that how they kind of ended off that series? Was that what they were hinting at? It was like a sword thing. Anyways, that's a tangent. But I did notice she's got pyrokinesis
Yeah,
for her abilities, and I was actually, when I was trying to read up on her a little bit, I was kind of hoping for something a little cooler than that. But is that because she's not an X-Men really, but she's a mutant and alien? So
she, yeah, Alien more so.
yeah, so it doesn't really like pull in the X-Men anymore. So I don't know. I'm curious what they're gonna do with that character. I don't really know much. I'll have to read a little bit more, obviously.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that was oddly enough, I believe, spoiled via GIF or GIF. The next bit of news, and this goes back to what we talked about last week, is that Sacha Baron Cohen is apparently getting digitally scanned for his character as well. So, if you remember from last week, we talked about how potentially he is going to be playing Mephisto. And actually, I tend to think that this makes it more likely he is playing Mephisto.
Who was the other person they were talking about? Him? It could be one of two people. One was Mephisto, and the other one was, I feel like they said there was another person,
I don't remember. I've mainly just heard him connected with Mephisto.
which does make sense, right? If you're gonna do a bunch of scannings for him, it's probably gonna be pretty heavily CGI. I was watching how they did She-Hulk, and just the
Hmm.
amount of rendering that need to be done, and the CG, just all the CGI need to be accounted for in a new character like that, and so that would make sense that it's leaning more towards Mephisto because I'm sure he's gonna be pretty animated.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember which one of us said this last time, or if it made the final cut, but Mephisto often shows up as one character or somebody who doesn't look like the devil. So when somebody's making a deal with Mephisto, they don't necessarily know that or think, oh yeah, I'm making a deal with the devil, which means you could have Sacha Baron Cohen play just a regular looking person, but then transform into kind of that more devilish visage of Mephisto, like once deals are struck or stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see them just as in She-Hulk, right? They
Yep.
tried not to use too much of. Well, it's obviously cheaper for them to not do the CGI, but yeah, I think I really hope that's what it ends up to be. Honestly, I think it's a good choice, and like we had said last week.
With the devil, with Mephisto, if there was just a devil around in a lot of scenes, I feel like that would break the immersion in this fake world by being like, okay, they would have to do a really good job with Mephisto to make him not look too stereotypical. And if he does look stereotypical, then the less he's in that form, the better.
Yeah, I agreed.
All right. And then last piece of casting news, Marvel is talking with Yaha Abdul Mateen II to play Wonder Man. Now, I don't actually know really anything about him as an actor, other than a quick look at IMDb.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to do that because that is one thing I did not take a look. I also don't know much about Wonder Man. Again, falling short on this one, which is good because these are characters that they're not your standard characters, and which means they can have a little bit more fun with them, I think, even though they do have their place in the comics.
Yeah, Wonder Man is, well, currently in the comics, I believe he's a pacifist, oddly enough, as a superhero. But also his backstory background is kind of that he was a stunt actor or kind of Hollywood, not really a star, but just somebody in that Hollywood scene, which it makes sense then that Trevor Slattery, who is also an amazing thespian, would show up in something like this, which also probably means that this is going to be a little bit more of a comedic type show again, I think.
Yeah, when I see that Ben Kingsley is doing, I was like, oh, okay. Then yeah, the comedic act is definitely going to play a part for sure.
So Doctor Doom is not expected to be the main villain for the Fantastic Four film, which is interesting. And when we heard about this, we immediately went, okay, who potentially could that villain be? The obvious choice probably is Galactus, but does Galactus make sense to bring in at this point?
I think that's a I don't know. That's a pretty big baddie for that. I feel like there's already too much. There wouldn't be enough room to really
Yeah.
lay that character out well enough. I I'm kind of I think I was saying to you earlier that I don't know, like Ramatut, maybe go back and do a historical thing, and I don't know. I still can't figure out if that fits in well enough. Because I mean, I listened to that Kang Dynasty, or the not Kang Dynasty, but the went back to Comics Explained. And I listened to that whole Kang series by Hickman, I think Jonathan Hickman, and
There
going
was a lot of different Kang stuff.
yeah, in Ramata they do go back and end up battling against him, which then leads into other things with Kang and the future variants of Kang, I guess. So I don't know. I think Galactus would not be a great choice at this point. I'd like to see him later, but give him more time to develop.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be a little bit fast to bring in Galactus. I know when I was looking up a couple of villains that stood out to me, or a couple of characters that they go up against that stood out to me were the Beyonder and Molecule Man, mainly because both of those play in fairly heavily to Secret Invasion, or not Secret Invasion, Secret Wars. And I could see pitting them against one of those characters already, and even probably working with Doctor Doom, since I don't think we're going to get Fantastic Four without any mention of Doom or any Doom connection. He's just not going to be the villain at this point in time. So I could see that being the case because in the Secret Wars storylines, actually, both of them, one of them, Doom sets himself up basically as a god, and he is powering this battle world where different heroes from different realities are all together on this world, and that is being powered by the Molecule Man. Or then in the original one, Doom is trying to get the power of the Beyonder, is basically one of those beings that can kind of create a lot of things. And so Doom is trying to get their power in order to bring back his mother, who I believe is in hell, which, I mean, another Mephisto tie-in. Eventually Mephisto will show up. So I could see either of those if they're trying to set up a Doom-centric Secret Wars.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that. Jumping back to Ramatut, there's a point in that comic, and God, if somebody out there knows it's not Jonathan Hickman, if I'm wrong about that name, I apologize, and you can totally correct me.
Because Hickman did do the Fantastic Four prior to doing Avengers and New Avengers, as well as the Secret Wars storyline.
Yes, supposedly he kind of reshaped Nathaniel Richards' character a little bit, but like
Yeah.
tied it in at the same time. Anyways, the Fantastic Four go back in time, I believe, to defeat Ramatut, and Doom ends up being there as well. And so does
Okay.
Iron Lad. So there's a bit of a tie in there, then which could also, move forward. Maybe it's like the end of Fantastic Four. I don't know.
Yeah.
In the MCU world.
Yeah. I could see something like that, especially maybe not have it be the main focus. Maybe, I mean, there's so many questions that I have right now about how Kang Dynasty is going to lead into Secret Wars, because those are the only two Avenger movies on the slate. And Kang Dynasty is obviously super Kang focused, whereas Secret Wars has always had Doctor Doom as one of the main players in it.
And yeah, with King Dynasty, you never know how they're going to go about it because there's so many different possibilities
Yeah.
with because of it all of the time travel and all that. And
It's coming out that there's going to be a Disney Plus show, Vision Quest. At least that's the working title right now for it. Focused on White Vision and him trying to and regaining kind of his humanity, going from that robot, which is capable of processing everything, but to something that is capable of feeling again.
now I think in the comics he never really comes back around, right? I think he more stays that stale. If I recall that correctly, I could be wrong, but I'm glad that they will maybe give him a little bit more personality back, and that he can hopefully regain that humanity part of him again. Just because I think he needs that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of Paul Bettany's, you
yep.
know, time. So
Yeah. I mean, I think in the comics he does get back a fair amount of that humanity. It's maybe never quite to the point that we see with him and Scarlet Witch in the MCU, but I mean that's in the comics as well.
yeah,
But definitely does at or kind of revert back to what he was after becoming White Vision. Gets his color back basically. He is not just a that kind of blank slate that is signified by that white look. I'm guessing in the show they will probably have him slowly regain color.
yeah, it's probably a way to pull Wanda back in, I guess, maybe too. But that's a big speculation, I guess, at this point. I don't know. I'm glad that they're bringing him back. I think it's a fun idea. It's something worth exploring. I'm not sure what kind of theme to tie with that. Is it going to be comedic? Probably not.
So my kind of idea or theory for this could be that it's going to tie into the formation of the Young Avengers,
Yeah,
because he has helped kind of with some of the mentorship and training of them in the comics. So maybe it's a 6 or 8 episode series where Vision is encountering these different youths, and he learns something from each of them. And as part of that, he realizes that, okay, this is a team. These are all individuals who need each other and can come together to form kind of that superhero team that is missing right now because there really aren't Avengers.
it's like a bad news bears story, but
Yeah,
marvelized, right? They by helping the younger kids, the young Avengers, he too will bring himself back to a little bit more of a grounded and less stale individual. Probably he'll gain that humanization back. So
yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I can see that.
Let's actually just jump into Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah,
Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, because I mean we're talking about Kang, and that trailer dropped and we get to see Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. What do you think
it's
of that trailer?
I I was trying to just watch it a few times and just kind of absorb all that's kind of going on with it. It looks to me very very well done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something that Janet, why am I blanking on her name? Janet Van Dyne, right?
Yep.
Well, she was in the quantum realm. I think there's something that she had, and that's what Kang wants back, and that she took it or something.
Took it, hit it, something.
Yep, yep, and that's what she's not telling him, and that obviously unleashes many more things, right, for the future of the MCU. But there was so much to take away from that. It was hard for me to even to absorb it all.
Oh yeah.
So overall, I think it looks exciting. It's not, well, maybe there's another heist. Maybe they have to heist it somehow from somewhere. There's many. Ooh, may have to heist it from Modoc.
Yeah.
It's maybe which then it keeps the theme of a heist, which is cool, I guess, in one way. And I would be okay with that since it's in the quantum realm, so there's just a lot more complexities to deal with, right? But I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be a good adventure, and it's going to be a major part of what's coming ahead. I feel like just like Loki was.
Yeah, I think watching the trailer, I was blown away by how pretty it looked. Like it's a little ways out, and those special effects were really good. Like it was polished,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of the early trailers aren't nearly as polished as that. And I completely agree with you. I think that Janet stole something from Kang. One of the funnier theories that I've heard is that something is Miss Minutes, which would be hilarious. But I think it's probably going to be something more tangible than that, though Miss Minutes might just be like the embodiment of the coordinates or something like that Kang needs to get out and unleash those forces that he has massed in there.
Yeah, and I think all of it, and maybe this calls to like the entire Kang Dynasty story, is so that he can get back to, oh my God, I want to say Regina, but it's not Regina. I'm blanking.
Ravonna.
Thank you, Ravonna Renslayer. I think that's where it all pans out to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that comic that I went through on Comics Explained it's heavily influencing me at this point because it was such a good story, even though it's very complicated. I think I want to see that now. So maybe I'm imposing that into my theories a little too heavily. But
Yeah, I think probably she is at least some level of it.
not for Quantum Mania though. I think
Not for
that's
Quantum Mania.
No.
Loki season 2 probably see Renslayer and Kang together, I think.
Hmm.
And if I had to kind of guess, this will be about Scott having to get something to be able to basically get him and the people he loves out of the quantum realm, but doing so also will unleash Kang, and but it's worth it to him because he is more concerned about protecting those whom he loves versus maybe thinking about the long-term ramifications of everything that happens.
It's a real Star-Lord type of situation.
Yeah. And so he gets them out, and then Kang is also out.
Everything else happens because of Scott's choice, is what it seems like it's going to come down to. Which maybe it's just that's what it's supposed to be, because seems like it's a big infinite loop.
And so I do have one other question about this trailer that I have my theory for. Who do you think built that sonar to the quantum realm with Cassie?
I'm I want it to be Iron Lad. I think because then,
Yeah.
yeah, it just as we had said, we have Young Avengers, which it could play a part, or he could play a part in that, and it's almost like I want him to be now. Oh man, I'm having a terrible time with names tonight. In Ms. Marvel, the young kid, her friend,
Bruno?
says Bruno. Thank you. I want him to be like the Bruno, right? The of the Young Avengers. Everybody wants to help him out, and um, he's just this whiz kid, right? That doesn't really understand how powerful he really is, maybe at that point. But that's who I want it to be. That's who makes sense to me.
Yeah. I think that is who I want it to be as well. That is my current theory, is that it's going to be Iron Lad because everybody kind of seems surprised when Cassie kind of unveils this whole thing, like this beacon. Like Scott looks proud, but Scott is not the whiz that would be able to help her build something like that. I think the other option that I had pop into my head would be that it's MODOK who helped her build it. But in the same way that Janet was able to kind of reach out to Scott through the quantum realm, because Cassie's exposure to potentially the person who is going to be turned into MODOK, that she has that connection. And so he is basically planting thoughts in her mind to be able to build it. And so when she says we, it's kind of referring to this other voice she has in her head.
I did not even think of such a thing. That's interesting.
Then let's go on to the other trailer that we had, the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special.
It's got Kevin Bacon. That's pretty awesome. My 6 years of Kevin Bacon is now even better.
Introducing Kevin Bacon,
Yes.
which I loved, and
Uh,
Cosmo.
and Cosmo, right? That is cool. Now they've seen like Elf. Just toss that in there somewhere. I think it looked really fun. I think it's probably a nice holiday theme movie, right? And about Christmas for Star Lord. Or I don't know. It looked fun. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be comical.
Yeah,
And I don't have like super high expectations for it, but it'll be nice to have a little something at the holiday time.
yeah, it's going to be fun, and it's definitely going to be in a gap because we don't know when Secret Invasion starts. So it's going to be from what, December or November 26th until February something when Quantum Mania comes out. There's nothing on the calendar.
Hmm.
So I feel like they have to drop Secret Invasion during that time, but who knows?
Maybe they want to space it out, give a little breather.
A breather between the phases.
Yeah.
So, final thing to talk about, and we'll probably talk a little bit more next episode about kind of our expectations or like hopes and dreams, or like what our reasonable expectations are, what our hopes and dreams, and the wildest thing we can come up with that we'd love to see in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But
Yes.
that had its premiere this past week, and a few other screeners, or not premiere. not screeners, but like early showings as well. And generally, I've heard very solid things coming out of it. I've also heard that it seems like most likely they released it without one of the post-credit scenes.
Hmm.
So they've done this before, I believe, with Civil War, I think it was, or I forget precisely, or maybe it was Age of Ultron where we get the Spider-Man tease. Wherever we get that Spider-Man tease in the end credits, the early releases of that did not have that in there so that it couldn't be spoiled.
Well, that's good. I,
Yeah.
I prefer that. I mean, the people that screened it probably don't, but tough. You got to see the movie.
Yeah, they got to see the movie. I doubt that they really care that much about it because if it's something like the Spider-Man thing, then, well, it's cool and fun, but it doesn't particularly pertain to that film versus just everything in general. But generally, like I was saying, hearing very solid things about it and hearing that Namor is great in it. Tina Huerta, he is phenomenal apparently with it, which I mean, it seems like that from the trailers, anyways.
Yep.
But they did release some new clips too, which I will go into not too much detail on it. There was one where they were recruiting Riri Williams, and then they also released a new TV spot trailer where we get to see two Black Panther masks side by side. It is everywhere on TV, so I don't feel bad about mentioning it.
Yeah, we don't really say spoilers and not ahead of time, do we? I suppose.
Not for something
Um,
like that.
yeah, it's fair game. Okay, so I'm looking at the image right now. We kind of talked about this just a little bit ago. I'm gonna say that it's I don't know. I think it's just his dad's mask, and then T'Challa's on the left. So I don't know. It doesn't look like a new mask. It looks like an old mask, like that's been around.
So, I mean, I don't think you've necessarily seen that whole trailer, or if you did.
I've not.
So we do see that mask on the right picked up as somebody is picking it up to do something with it, assuming that they're going to put it on.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see that now.
So it looks to me probably like this is the moment where somebody else is stepping in to take that mantle that they had hoped, or like as part of the grieving process, nobody was becoming the Black Panther. But because of the threats that have been posed, seemingly by the Talosians, Namor's people, but most likely by some other group as well behind it, because it definitely is implied that Namor isn't the main villain of this, that Shuri or somebody is having to take up that mantle of the Black Panther and join the fight.
Yeah, it does look like a woman's hands are grabbing it
Yes.
for sure. I'm just kind of sitting here staring at it. Yeah, I don't know. It could be a lead, like a mislead. I don't know. Could be another. Maybe it's T'Challa's mom. Maybe it's Angela Bassett. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. Give her a chance at it. Just have a little time in the suit.
Yep.
But which would kind of make sense then because it does look like his father's mask.
Also looks some like his mask too.
Yeah, I have to go back to the first Black Panther and look at because you can see him in that one. I've decided not to look at anymore because I just don't like. I get to a point where I don't want to watch any more of the trailers because I feel like I gotta have a little bit. I want the mystery of it right as I have it right now. Kind of just leaving it alone.
After this kind of last little burst of stuff, this last little trailer, and like I said, that clip, I'm kind of doing the same thing at this point. Hopefully, this was a bunch of fun discussion, a ton of news to talk about. Let us know your thoughts, especially on those two trailers. What did you think of them? Was Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? Do you want more story beats potentially with that? Better idea of what might be going on? Are you excited for another Marvel special presentation? You can let us know that over on Twitter. Tweet your thoughts with hashtag 10minmarvel or at the Scando, and we'll talk about them next week, or leave comments over on nerdologists.com. And again, thank you so much for listening. I give a few ways at the beginning to help support the podcast, but there's also a Patreon at patreon.com/nerdologists. The funds there go to help improve the quality of this podcast, as well as the Malts and Meeples YouTube channel and nerdologist.com website. But with that, I'll see you next time.
Take it easy.